Hello, I'm still Jeff Livingston, historian of the Hawaiian Railway Society. I haven't changed since the last program. Today I'd like to talk a little about some of the other military equipment that we have in the yard. In a recent program we went over the 4 diesel locomotives that are ex-military. We also have a large quantity of ex-military freight cars. At the beginning of the Second World War, both the Navy and the Army were ill-prepared when it comes to railroad equipment. And a flurry of orders went in from the 14th Naval District to the mainland for equipment. Now, the first narrow gauge equipment to arrive was actually meant to go to Argentina, and they were diverted to Hawaii and offloaded as the first section of newer cars. A little later in the war, the Pressed Steel Car Company began sending cars to Hawaii. They were knocked down, so they had the trucks were separated from the frames, and the sides were separated from the frames, and the roofs were separated from the frames. So they had to be assembled kind of like a kit. So who did the assembly? U.S. Navy Seabees. Here's a car being assembled at Iroquois Point. I forget just how many cars they actually put together. There were a number of different CB groups involved, but they were well in excess of 400 of these boxcars that were assembled. Now, the Navy preferred the OR&L's boxcars early on because they had wooden decks, and the Argentine or export cars they had received early had steel decks. So a number of those were used by the OR&L until these pressed steel cars arrived and could take over, and the OR&L could get some of their cars back. These boxcars remained the mainstay of the Navy's freight equipment up until the end of operations. When the Navy donated the locomotives to the Hawaiian Railway Society, they also donated a number of pieces of freight cars. There were 9 Navy boxcars donated, and of those 9, they were parked out on a spur and contained a lot of spare parts. A lot of spare parts for the diesels, a lot of spare parts for the cars, brake shoes, brake knuckles, injectors, all the test equipment needed. And unfortunately, they were engulfed in a grass fire. So instead of 9 intact, usable, good-looking freight cars, HRS got some burned out hulks. Now, some weren't as bad as these, but it still required an extensive amount of effort to get any of them back in service. And all of the spare parts and additional material were lost in that fire. Here's a little closer view, and you can see the damage caused. One end of the car is virtually gone. The interior is gutted, and these were already at this point well over 30 years old. The wood was dry, it had lots of paint on it, and they went up like a matchstick. So far, 3 of these boxcars have been restored. This one is painted a dark red. Boxcar red is what it's commonly referred to, and represents one of the cars in use at Lu'u'u'ulei and throughout Oahu during the war. Another car has been restored and painted gray. Same kind of car, same design. Now, these cars have steel underframes, wooden decks, steel body frames with a steel roof, and wood siding. So they're referred to as an outside braced wood boxcar. They're very utilitarian, and they are absolutely great to have, not only as a work car, but they're also used as storage. Now, a third car has been restored cosmetically and is now in use by the Oahu Model Railroad Society. The car contains an HO scale model railroad and is now attached to a outdoor HO scale railroad with a cover, and it is open to the public on Saturdays when most of the members are there. So of the 9 original cars plus 2 or 3 others that were picked up later, 3 can be considered restored. The remainder of them are in various stages of disrepair, but we still use them for storage. We patch them up as best we can. You can see on this one where you can see light through the roof. So everything has to be covered that we store in here. We would like to restore a couple more, but at the moment there is so much work to be done and other restorations to accomplish that the 2 cars that are actually operational will be maintained so that it will be at least demonstrating of what these cars were. This particular car we received through a donation from a private individual, and it has no trucks. In trying to restore one more car, which I would like to see done, at least this car has got good doors, where some of the other cars we have, the doors are severely rusted and collapsing. These pressed steel cars were not only in the boxcar red and the gray, some of them were also painted black. Now, why that is so, we have no idea. The Navy being the Navy, you would think that everything would be uniform, standard, and all one color. But at least in this case, there was a mix of the 3 colors, boxcar red, gray, and black. I'd like to see one of each restored so people get a good representation of what was. Now, originally, the Navy also provided us 2 Navy flat cars. We traded one to the now defunct Lahaina Kalapali and Pacific in exchange for a Fairmont track car, what we refer to as a speeder. And this is the other Navy flat car, which is currently stored on Jensen siding. So if you come out to ride the train on a Saturday, Sunday, or Wednesday, you'll see these cars parked at Jensen. We were fortunate to also receive a gondola. This is another pressed steel car company, and this is an early photograph of its use at HRS. It was actually used as a passenger car. It was used at ʻŌlelo as a passenger car for short fan trips among the base, and it was the first passenger car to be placed in use at the Eva Yard. It has since been restored, and this restoration was done as an Eagle Scout project. And the young man who headed that up did an outstanding job, and his troop of Boy Scouts did phenomenal work. Now, obviously, there was adult supervision, but the boys did the work themselves, and they did absolutely great. This car is in use consistently. We use it as an idler car between the locomotive and the first passenger car. That way, the folks in that first passenger car are not subjected to as much noise or heat from the radiator of the locomotive. American Car and Foundry built a number of narrow gauge cars for Hawaii, and among them was one of the 2 tank cars that the Navy donated to the Hawaiian Railway. This is Tanker Roger, and this is an early paint job that she was given. You notice that little red spot in the back there, that's a pump. Tanker Roger was equipped with a pump at the back. We're not sure exactly why. We think it was to clear debris and or used as a containment and then pumped out. Since this picture was taken, Roger was returned to her original color, which was red. And you can see the pump and the diesel engine on the back there better. It has been my dream for years to make this into a fire car. Leave the name Tanker Roger, paint her red. We have a monitor available. Fill it with water, take the suction from the bottom through the pump up to the monitor, and should we have a fire along the right-of-way, we can go out and help save ourselves. We have had fires on the right-of-way, and there are some locations which make it extremely difficult for the fire department to get to. And to save our tracks and our ties and any of the surrounding area, I would love to see this made into a fire car. So if you have any pipe fitters out there that would like something to do, or diesel mechanics that want to fire up that engine again, I did have it running years ago, and we can overhaul the pump and maybe make a dream come true and contribute to the overall safety of the area. The second tank car we have was used strictly as a sludge tank, from what we can tell. So waste oil, waste diesel, waste fuel all got poured into here. The Hawaiian Railway used it for the same thing for a number of years, and it has since been completely drained and cleaned and is contaminant free. The same with Tanker Roger. There's nothing in there other than possibly rust, which can be dangerous by itself. But these 2 tank cars are the only narrow gauge tank cars that are still remaining with the society. Now, before the Second World War, the Naval Magazine was located on Kahuahua Island inside of Pearl Harbor. That was not the best place to have a magazine. Since Pearl Harbor kept growing, there were many ships, there was housing, there was supply, and having that potential disaster that close to everything, the Navy wanted to move it, and that's when they came up with ʻŌlelo, the Naval Ammunition Depot. To support the ammunition depot and Westlock, the Navy purchased 2 33-ton Atlas diesels. I wish we still had one of those. But they also purchased a number of Koppel boxcars. We are fortunate that we have 2 of these Koppel boxcars in the yard. This is an original built in 1933. The other one we have has had some minor modifications done to it and does now no longer has the original trucks. It has American Car and Foundry trucks. But both of these cars are used for storage, and both of them are going to have to get new roofs sometime before the next 5 to 10 years is up. These cars were not donated by the Navy. These cars were purchased from the scrapper of the Oahu Railway and Land Company. The OR&L bought 4 of these cars from the Navy and had them in the Honolulu yard. 2 were sold to a shipyard, and the scrapper sold 2 more of these to individual HRS members who then in turn donated them to the Railway Society. Earlier I mentioned the export cars. These cars were built for Argentina under contract, and they were built by Pullman Standard and the American Car and Foundry. They never made it past California. They were loaded on cargo ships and sent directly to Pearl Harbor. They were called export cars because they were built for export. They were also referred to as Argentine cars because they were originally meant for Argentina. They are narrow gauge, and both the Army and the Navy use them extensively. This photograph is their in-service use during the Second World War. Interestingly, at least one of these cars that was used by the Army was designated as a refrigerator car. Now, there were no true refrigerator cars on the ORNL, and I don't think it was a true refrigerator car that the Army came up with. A refrigerated car in those days was something you added some insulation on the inside, filled with sawdust and blocks of ice, and then hung meat and got it as quickly as you could to its destination. The ORNL did have some ventilated cars, but no refrigeration. So this particular car is somewhat unique. The same cars were also sent to Alaska for use on the narrow gauge railroad up there. So Argentina provided the initial freight car loads for both Hawaii and Alaska at the start of the Second World War. Subsequent to the Argentine cars and the end of the war, they really weren't that useful. They had steel decks, so they didn't want to use those for moving ammunition if they could avoid it. They'd prefer the wooden decks. So a number of them were converted into storage or work containers and were used at Pearl Harbor. In this photograph, this is one of the Argentine or export cars, and you can see the lifting lugs at the bottom. These were used to crane in and out of the dry docks so that tools and equipment could be easily moved from one location to another. At some point they became excess, and in a manner lost to history, since nobody at HRS remembers, 5 of these cars made their way out to the yard. Now they continued to be used primarily for storage, and this is one of the most recent ones. You can see that it's actually in pretty decent shape, and we would love to see one of these restored. Now we would have to take a set of trucks off of another car, and until we get one of these cars up high enough that we can cut off the lifting lugs on the bottom, we don't even know if the truck connection points are still usable and if the trucks that we have would even fit. But we'd love to see one of these restored on wheels to join the collection as an example of the equipment that was so important to winning the war here in Hawaii. Now the Army was not to be outdone with donating equipment. So in addition to locomotive 7750, 12 flat cars were donated. Now, if these two programs are shown close together, you may recognize this photograph. It's cropped from an earlier one, but it shows the 12 flat cars on Pier 40 at Honolulu Harbor. And that's the front end of 7750 sticking out on the right. These cars also became critical to the operations of the Hawaiian Railway Society. A number of them, 6 in fact, were converted to passenger cars. Now these passenger cars mimic the third-class passenger cars bought by the ORNL from the Carter Brothers car company in 1889. They're open cars with bench seating down the center and on both sides. And it's just been in the last few years, you can see the steps at the corner, that we added those to the cars. Up until then, entry was made from a platform, so you had to climb up the steps, walk across the platform, through the swinging doors and onto the car. This makes it much easier for the crew and for the passengers to embark and disembark. We do have one car that is handicap capable and can lift a wheelchair with ease. So if you wish to come out to ride the train and have some mobility challenges, we can certainly accommodate you, and we would love to see you out there. Of the remaining flat cars that the Army gave us, 2 have been used as work cars. The decks were replaced, and a welded steel bead on the outside to hold everything in place. And these cars were routinely used up until a few years ago, when we went with a smaller track gang and a smaller track crew. These 2 cars were also used to haul pipe for a project. The contractor actually hauled or paid the Hawaiian Railway to act as a real railroad and haul freight for him, because it was easier to get it from the car to the job site, which was adjacent to the tracks, than it was to haul it overland on a truck. We found out later that we're really not supposed to do that, but it was already done. 3 of the cars have not been restored. This is one of them. There are a couple more out of Jensen. This one is probably in the best condition of the unrestored cars. All of these cars are operational. Brakes still work, they can still roll. And this is one that we would hope to have restored sometime in the future. Now, I know I've spoken many times about the need for volunteers, welders, mechanics, woodworkers, pipe fitters, ship fitters, sheet metal workers, I don't care. If you've got some time, we can use the help. As soon as I can figure out how to do it, I intend to issue a challenge to the Transportation Corps, I believe it's a brigade here, to see if they can overhaul that last flat car that you saw. Then issue the same challenge to the Seabees, see if they can do the Navy flat car. HRS can provide the materials and some expertise on how to get them apart and put them back together. But I wonder who would get done soonest. In my dreams, I can make this happen, but we'll see. But again, we really need your help. The society for 50 years has been pushing the main line out as far as we possibly can. We'd like to go further. Keeping the equipment up and running as it gets older, and obviously some of us get older, can be a challenge, but it's a lot of fun, it's a lot of camaraderie, and it's a lot of knowledge. We have a few young guys out there that have taken to this like the proverbial duck to a water. And to be able to show them the hows and whys we do something, and why it's important, not only from a mechanical aspect in a restoration, but the historical aspect and all of the history that goes into that particular piece. It had to be designed. It had to be patterned. It had to be run through a foundry. It had to be cast. It had to be cleaned. Woodworking on the cars. This isn't general carpentry on some of these. This is high level craftsmanship on some of these passenger cars. But it's all doable, and it was all done by hand. And we have power tools now, and it's fairly easy to show someone, if they're interested, on how to use it and how to help. We're not asking for a long-term commitment. 4 hours, a couple times a month, that's fine. 8 hours once a month, that's great. Let us know what you're interested in, what you like to do. We'll set you up with a project that's achievable, not some grandiose things that don't go through my head often, but an achievable project. And you have the satisfaction of keeping a part of history alive. We also need train crew. We need maintenance guys. We need narrators. You know, the more people we have involved, the easier it is on everyone. The train runs 3 days a week on schedule, and other times as charters. And the same train crew is out there almost all the time. It would be absolutely lovely to be able to swap people out, so if they need a day off or something happens, they can take that time and the trains still run and still show our local folks and visitors part of the history of Hawaii as it approaches railroading. Again, if you have questions, if you have comments, if you have thoughts, if there's anything else you'd like to hear about or see, please contact me, historian@hawaiianrailway.com.